D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025. The Game, Adam Vingan, Connor Nute, and Brandon Bigsby here with you. We hope you are having a wonderful Tuesday. Willie Donick and Derek Mason continue to be on vacation, as I've said a couple of times. Not together. They're on separate vacations. But both of them will be back next week. We actually received, Connor Nute, a really cool text message from Willie Donick earlier today.
Yes, we did.
Because his son, Mahoney Donick, who is a D3 national champion in baseball with Denison University, he and his teammates and other championship teams from the university visited the White House. So we saw a video of Mahoney Donick in a big room with President Trump. Very cool.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
I mean, despite who the president is or what you believe, that doesn't matter. You have the honor to go to the White House and be recognized by the president of the United States. You take it. So how cool is that for the Donick family?
Very cool. Of course, we are thrilled that Mahoney Donick and the Denison Big Red won the D3 national championship in baseball. Still no sign of Willie's beloved Denison hat, the hat he wore throughout the run. He lost it. Our working theory is one day after the show, Willie put his hat on top of his car, took off his pullover, and forgot to put his hat back on, and then drove away with his beloved lucky hat on the roof.
I'm going to laugh if it turns up one day randomly, months from now, and we just find it.
Yeah.
How funny would that? I mean, it'd be unfortunate, but how funny would that be?
Unfortunately, we do not have access to security footage. Chase McCabe told us by the time he came back from vacation, we did not have access to the security footage from the prior week. So we'll never know what happened to Willie's hat. It would be hilarious as hell if it just randomly showed up one day. I know Willie would be thrilled. Too. Yeah, right? I know Willie would be thrilled, but it was awesome to see that video of Mahoney Donick and his teammates at the White House with the president celebrating their national championship. Joey Dwyer of Vandy on SI will join us in roughly 15-20 minutes. He's down in Tampa for SEC Media Days. Today, I think Vanderbilt has gone already. So today was Vanderbilt Day at SEC Media Days. Clark Lea addressed reporters earlier today. So we'll get into Vanderbilt football with Joey Dwyer in about 15 minutes. During the 4 o'clock hour, Terry McCormick, veteran Titans reporter, will join us live here in studio between 4 and 5 to help us break down and preview Titans training camp. We are going to have a different Titans reporter in studio with us from 4 to 5 every day for the rest of the week. Easy for me to say. Terry McCormick today, Nick Suss tomorrow, Easton Freeze on Thursday, Teron Davenport on Friday. Also, I should note, the body fat percentage in the studio has spiked since Chase and Big Joe ended.
Yeah.
Ricochet, Bishop Khan, Toa Leona, also known as The Demand and All Elite Wrestling, were here in the studio. And I have to imagine their combined body fat percentage is in the single digits.
Yeah.
So things have gotten a little bit fatter in studio. No disrespect to me and Connor. I mean, we're
in shape, just not in their shape.
Well, I mean, how many people are in their shape? I mean, they are in fabulous shape. That's what you have to do if you are a professional wrestler. And Ricochet, Toa Leona, Bishop Khan, and the rest of AEW will be here tomorrow, not in studio, but downtown at the Pinnacle for AEW Dynamite in Collision.
I should have asked Ricochet if he was a Kentucky fan because he grew up in Paducah.
He is the pride of Paducah, Kentucky.
He had his Eagles hat on. I know he's a big Philadelphia guy.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I should have asked him.
Yeah, I'm not really sure of his geography because he's from Paducah.
Billed from Las Vegas.
Billed from Las Vegas. Big Eagles fan, as I understand it. So I'm not really sure how all of that works, but I'm not going to challenge him on his fandom.
I think
I've only had one experience in my life in Paducah, Kentucky. It was several years ago. The Predators were playing a home road back-to-back. They played a home game here in the afternoon and then went to St. Louis for a road game the following day. And me, Robbie Stanley, and Darren McFarland carpooled. Really interesting group. We carpooled from Nashville to St. Louis for the game on Sunday. It was near the end of the regular season. And we stopped in Paducah, Kentucky for dinner. And let me tell you, never in my life had I experienced a 45-minute wait at an Applebee's until I went to Paducah, Kentucky. Or was it the other way around? It was a 45-minute wait at, is it Rafferty's? I think it was a 45-minute wait at Rafferty's on a Saturday night in Paducah. We ended up going to Applebee's because we weren't willing to wait 45 minutes for Rafferty's. And I'm like, damn, Paducah is hopping on the Saturday night. I just remember this one stretch with all of the chain restaurants. And now I know the humble beginnings of Ricochet.
Yeah.
Maybe he went to that Rafferty's. Maybe he has his own table there.
Maybe he's got a picture framed. Yeah.
That's a good question. Who else notable is from Paducah, Kentucky?
I can't think of anyone. I can think of notable people from the state of Kentucky, but I can't think of anyone specifically from Paducah, Kentucky.
Are you from Kentucky?
I am not.
Okay.
My father is.
Got it.
He grew up he was born here, but he grew up in right near Murray County. So right near Murray State. And my grandfather worked there as a baseball coach. So that's where my Kentucky lineage comes from.
A lot of notable people on Paducah, Kentucky's Wikipedia page. Now, I'm not going to go through all of them, but more people than I anticipated.
Huh.
So Paducah,
I got to do my research now.
Paducah apparently is the place to be. But anyway, it was cool to see Ricochet, Bishop Khan, and Toa Leona in studio. Again, AEW downtown at the Pinnacle. 2 shows in one tomorrow night. Bell time, I believe, is 6:30 p.m. Show goes on the air at 7 p.m. The big sports news of the day, ESPN has had another round of layoffs. It's mostly tied to the NFL Network acquisition, and there are some bold names who have been laid off by ESPN. Ryan Clark, and man, this was awkward as hell yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
So in case you missed it, Ryan Clark was on NFL Live doing a normal appearance. And then I think randomly he just disappeared for the rest of the show. It's been reported that Ryan Clark wasn't supposed to be laid off until today, but people had caught wind that he was going to be laid off. And ESPN did not want Ryan Clark to find out while he was on the air that he was going to be laid off. Yeah. So I guess they told him abruptly, and then he just disappeared.
Watch the clip. You can tell that those hosts know. You can just see it in their eyes that they know. It's unfortunate. I mean, you never want to see someone lose their job.
No.
I will say the layoffs that they've made make sense to me. Like Ryan Clark is a very controversial figure.
Ryan Clark, Carl Ravitch, who had been at ESPN for more than 30 years. He was laid off. This one was interesting. Tom Pelissero, NFL Network insider. Now that NFL Network and ESPN have merged, you only need so many NFL insiders. So Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, I guess Tom Pelissero was the low man on the totem pole, but I'm sure he's going to find a job.
Yeah, I hear the Athletics got an NFL insider job.
I've heard that as well. Veteran Sports Center anchor David Lloyd, NFL Network analyst and friend of Titans fans, Charles Davis, laid off as well. Bart Scott, Cam Newton, laid off as well. And, I will miss Cam Newton dressing up like the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland every day on ESPN. But as you said, Connor, as someone who was also laid off more than 4 years ago, being laid off sucks.
Yeah.
And a lot of these men and women, specifically the ex-athletes, Ryan Clark, Cam Newton, Bart Scott, Charles Davis, they've got money. So they aren't as hurt by this as someone, say, in my position was 4 years ago. But certainly it does stink. And it's led to a lot of hand-wringing about the state of ESPN and all of the money being paid to Pat McAfee and Stephen A. Smith and what this means for the future of ESPN. And look, the way that we consume our sports news, our information in general, has changed dramatically over the years. And even ESPN isn't immune to this. So certainly it does stink for all of these people who put in a lot of hard work at ESPN. And look, I Connor, you're not a huge fan of Carl Ravitch as a play-by-play guy.
Not a fan.
But, he put in more than 30 years at ESPN. I'm not going to dance on anybody's grave. I know you're not dancing on Carl Ravitch's grave.
No, I'm not trying to. I mean, can I say that I was ever thrilled with Carl Ravitch's play-by-play performances, especially in the sport that you and I love in college basketball? No, I mean, he lost me when he had his whole the SEC as a conference sucks because they're 500 in conference play.
Oh, yes.
And then doubled down on it. That's when he lost me.
I had forgotten. I had forgotten about that.
But in his defense, I don't ever want to see anyone lose their job, especially someone that's been there as long as he has. And
longer than you've been alive, my friend.
By about 8 years. But I mean, he was a staple of baseball coverage on that program, and I'm sure he'll find himself somewhere else. Fox has openings. Look, I'm not going to advertise that people go out and hire them, but it is unfortunate. And honestly, ESPN's in this weird stage where their shows that they put on, I feel like you can find better coverage elsewhere. Like if I want insight and I want analysis, there's plenty of people on YouTube that I can go to. Former coaches, current coaches, former players that I feel like do a great job of breaking down the film or breaking down what's going on inside. ESPN is in this weird stage where they want to entertain you by people yelling all the time. Stephen A. Smith, the Pat McAfee show. I mean, it's got substance to it and it's funny, but if you want in-depth numbers and analysis, it's probably not the place to go to. So ESPN's in kind of a weird space. So it makes sense why these layoffs are happening.
Another report I saw was that Ryan Clark's layoff was somewhat tied to that really awkward interaction he had with Peter Schrager on the air last season
in September,
where Ryan Clark basically pulled the "I played, so I know more than you" card.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand it. Look, Derek Mason fights this urge all the time whenever somebody has an opinion that he disagrees with. And he really does not like to pull the "I played the game, so I know better" card. But I tell him, hey, man, you did play the game at a high level for a very long time. You know more than a lot of people. So don't be afraid of flexing that muscle. But the way that Ryan Clark confronted Peter Schrager, it was something about CeeDee Lamb, I want to say, about CeeDee Lamb not having any targets or catches in the game early in the season for the Cowboys. It was really awkward. I went back and watched it earlier today, and it's as awkward as it was 6-7 months ago, however long it's been. But yeah, look, I can empathize. I can empathize. Excuse me, not emphasize. I can empathize with people who have been laid off, as I have been laid off. And ESPN, man, it's a much different place than it was in our youth. 615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on everything happening in the world of sports. 615-737-1025. But coming up next, Joey Dwyer of Vandy on SI will join the program. He is down in Tampa for SEC Media Days. He spoke to Clark Lea earlier today. It was Vanderbilt Day at SEC Media Days. Of course, a lot of discussion on what the post-Diego Pavia era will look like at Vanderbilt. The quarterback situation with Jared Curtis and Blaze Berlowitz. Joey's got it all covered, and he'll help us break it down coming up next. 615-737-1025 today. The Nashville Sounds take on the Sugarland Space Cowboys. Okay. All right. First pitch is at 7:05 p.m. The Sugarland Space Cowboys. All right.
Houston Astros affiliate.
The Space Cowboys. I like it. Not,
Minor league names are awesome.
yeah, I mean, they're no Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, but the Sounds will take on the Sugarland Space Cowboys. First pitch is at 7:05 p.m. You can catch all of the action on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks Family Leisure, Maple Street Biscuit Company, and Social Cantina. D-Mace, Vingan and Donick, 1025. The Game, Adam Vingan, Connor Nute here with you. As I said, AEW in town tomorrow. AEW themes today, my friend.
All right.
That's the theme of the show, of course, starting with the AEW World Champion, Kenny Omega, who will be wrestling tomorrow at the Pinnacle. In the meantime, let's go to our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com, and welcome in Joey Dwyer of Vandy on SI, who is live in Tampa for SEC Media Days. Hi, Joey. How are you?
Good. How are you guys? Appreciate you having me.
Of course. Thank you for joining us. So we heard Clark Lea at the podium today. I will say this about Clark Lea, having him on this show weekly during the season, I would run through a brick wall for that man. I mean, there's just something about the way he commands a stage. He's got that presence. And among the things he said to the assorted media today was, quote, last season was not an arrival. It was simply another step in the climb. And Joey, yesterday, Connor and I had the debate. Which program is under more pressure in 2026, Tennessee or Vanderbilt? And I made the argument that Vanderbilt is under more pressure this season just because of the momentum the Commodores have built over the past couple of years and whether they will be able to sustain it or build on it in the post-Diego Pavia era. As someone who's around the program on a regular basis, how much pressure would you say is on the Commodores football program entering this season?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's a nuanced question that you guys asked the other day, too. To me, there's more pressure on Tennessee to be in the playoff, but I also think there's a fair amount of pressure on Vanderbilt, not necessarily to be in the playoff, but to put together a foundational year that indicates to you that this thing is still heading in the right direction in the post-Diego Pavia era. I think there's a lot of pressure for Jared Curtis to be the guy. I think there's pressure for them to show that they have a core around him that they can supplement with transfers and build into a playoff team at some point. And to me, that's what pressure looks like for them. And they think they can win a national championship. They think they can make the playoff. I think externally, people are more skeptical of that. To me, a successful year looks like them showing that they can build on what they have this year and potentially be a playoff team next year or the year after that. And I don't know that I expect them to win 10 games or anything along those lines, but I think they're going to trend in that direction next year. Right now, though, I think it's all about, do you have the building blocks, even if Clark Lea's not necessarily going to say that right now.
Joey, give us the vibe around Vanderbilt at SEC Media Days, because 1 year ago, Diego Pavia was there. And you know Diego Pavia. He has an aura. And it really seemed like Diego Pavia was one of the stars of the show last year. But no quarterback, of course, for Vanderbilt at SEC Media Days. Just tell us what the vibe is around SEC Media Days with the program.
Yeah, I thought it was the right way to say it's probably politically correct. Nobody was really giving anything that would get them in trouble or would tip their hand about anything. Everything felt secretive today in a lot of ways. They've obviously expressed their aspirations for what they believe they can do, what they want to do. And none of that was any secret going into the day anyway, but you ask what happens with the offense. Is it going to look different? Nobody was willing to tip their hands at all in regard to how they're going to adjust without Diego Pavia. Nobody was willing to tip their hands in regard to the quarterback competition. So secretive, probably the biggest tone today, I would guess. And then I will say that probably the biggest storyline is just their confidence. A year ago, everyone would say they thought they could win a national championship, and that was a shock to the system for people who covered Vanderbilt for a long time. And then you look today, and it's just flowing off guys' mouths, and it doesn't require a new story every time somebody says it anymore. So those are kind of the takeaways I had from the day. But Vanderbilt, it seems quietly confident in what it has, especially offensively, but really no disclosure of what exactly that's going to look like at this point.
Joey Dwyer of Vandy on SI joining us on D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick. Joey, let's dive more into the offense specifically. Vanderbilt is returning only 38% of its offensive production from a year ago, according to ESPN. 44% of total production on the team, which is the worst rate in the SEC. We know there's no more Diego Pavia. We know there's no more Eli Stowers. Of course, Jared Curtis in the mix now. But who do you look at specifically as the person or persons who will have to pick up the slack on the offensive side of the ball this season?
think a lot of it goes to the returners offensively, who they know can be good players. I think a lot of those guys have to turn into elite guys, though. Specifically, Junior Sherrill, the number one receiver. He was at media days today and talked a big game. He's talked a big game all summer in regard to what he can be for Vanderbilt and what kind of season he can have. He's been really good for Vanderbilt. He's had a great career. Now Vanderbilt needs him to be elite, and it's time for him to do it. It's time for him to step up. To me, it's time for Cedric Alexander to become one of the best backs in the league as well, and for tight end Cole Spence to assume the receiving role that we thought that he was going to take on before Eli Sowers got to Vanderbilt 2 years ago. Those are the three guys. And then I think some of their transfers to Corey Thomas is supposed to be their number 2 receiver, had some struggles throughout the spring. And obviously they have a lot of new faces on the offensive line who are experienced, but that's got to come together. Like, it's funny to kind of a cop-out answer and naming a bunch of guys, but there's so many moving parts that for them to be an elite offense or anywhere near it, they just got to have a lot come together. And I think that's what makes you uncomfortable if you're a Vanderbilt football fan right now.
You just posted on Vandy on SI.com a story about your experience shadowing Cedric Alexander today at SEC Media Days. I see him on set with Paul Feinbaum right now. He's wearing a gigantic chain. I mean, I don't want to know how much that costs. Maybe you could tell us. But what was your experience like following around Cedric Alexander? What did you get from that experience?
Yeah, I think the reason I want to do the story was Cedric Alexander has a lot of nuance to him, and he's generally relatively guarded around the media, and I really wanted to kind of get in his orbit a little bit today and show people his personality. His mom has told me numerous times his smile is like his patented thing in life. Like there's nothing like Cedric Alexander's smile, and I wanted to understand kind of where it came from. But again, he was one of those guys who really wasn't willing to divulge a lot in regards to the roster, but he just lit up when I asked him about that teddy bear on his chain. He talked about how he feels like everyone should know that he's someone that people can open up to, and that he's there to support people, and that's why he wore the chain. I think that was the goal of the story, was to hear things like that, and then some funny anecdotes in there as well about how he chose his outfit on ChatGPT before media days. But yeah, Cedric Alexander is really just such an upbeat personality, and I think college football needs more people like him, which is why I wanted to spotlight him. And again, today kind of reaffirmed all those things to me.
We're talking to Joey Dwyer of Vandy for SI. And Joey, obviously last year, it's no secret that the offense flowed through Diego Pavia. I mean, he was a Heisman candidate for most of the season, and I think he was the focal point of that offense. With him gone now, who in your mind needs to step up to be the focal point and the driving force of this offense?
Clark Lea kind of hit on it today. I think it's their offensive line. I think if the first-year starting quarterback, whether it be Jared Curtis or Blaise Berlowitz, is going to have some real struggle if the pocket can't hold up. They want to run to win. That's one of Clark Lea's mottos, as you guys know. And if Cedric Alexander doesn't have the holes to run through, and Vanderbilt can't use its quarterbacks in that way to take the pressure off of them throwing it downfield, and they can't use that to generate some margin for error offensively, I think they're going to have a really difficult time. So, again, kind of a cop-out answer here, but I think it's going to be their offensive line. I just don't see how they could be good if they had a offensive line like they did early in Clark's tenure. I just think there's too many question marks elsewhere for them to not have that nailed down. And honestly, I think they think the same thing based off of how they invested their money this offseason.
No, I think it's a fair answer, especially you mentioned Cedric Alexander, who has the potential to take the step and be one of the best running backs in the entire country. So I think it's a fair answer. But you kind of mentioned the quarterback position there, and obviously the narrative surrounding that was Pete Nakos putting out his projected starting quarterbacks for the SEC this season, and he has Blaise Berlowitz there. What's your take on that? Do you think that Blaise should be the starter, or should they just ride with the true freshman and give the fans what they want?
Yeah, to me, it's always been Jared Curtis. I won't say Jared Curtis or bust, but I just think Jared Curtis makes the most sense here. And to me, I wrote a column in the spring after the spring game, and essentially the premise of it was Jared Curtis should be the starter because I don't know how Vanderbilt could trust Blaise Berlowitz at this stage, and it's nothing personal with Blaise, but just seeing him practice for the last few years, I just think there's too much of an erratic nature there. If I'm Vanderbilt, I can't trust that he's not going to lose me a game that I'm otherwise going to win. And I think that's what scares you to death about Blaise Berlowitz is it's not that he can't process, but some of the decision making, it comes in spurts. But when it's bad, I think Vanderbilt's going to have a really hard time overcoming that. I think you're willing to live with that more if it's a freshman quarterback. And again, like I think a big goal of this year is to know if you have the guy or not in Jared Curtis, and to be able to tell recruits that you think you have the guy heading into year two. That's, to me, it just doesn't make much sense to start Blaise Berlowitz. I think a lot of the fan base would agree, like you alluded to. I think you got to take your lumps with Curtis, and especially the way the schedule plays with Austin Peay and Delaware early. I think it would almost be foolish to start Berlowitz in those games and then potentially trot out Curtis when you're facing SEC and ACC opponents later in the year.
Joey Dwyer of Vandy on SI is with us here. Joey, long-term here, when you play in the conference like the SEC, you have to deal with the recruiting juggernauts like Alabama, Georgia, LSU, so on and so forth. I'm not saying that Vandy needs to completely out-recruit those teams because I'm not sure if that's possible. But on the recruiting trail, how much of a factor does Vandy need to be in the future to maintain momentum and be an SEC contender year in and year out?
Well, they need to do what they did with the last core, where you had a Langston Patterson who stuck around and was a foundational player for them, and you have Junior Sherrill, who's a foundational player for them, Cedric Alexander. It doesn't mean that you got to get 5 stars like Jared Curtis or Amari Sanders all the time, but it does mean that you have to have guys who you know are going to be contributors for 3 years or so every cycle. And I think Vanderbilt's getting closer to that. It kind of funny you said that. I asked Clark Lea this morning, and this was one of the things I really wanted to press him about the most was, do you feel like you have enough NIL to where you can distribute it to high school kids in the way that you kind of desired to and couldn't a few years ago? And he said, yes. Like we finally figured out that part of things, and we're able to give high school kids more NIL than we had previously, and that's part of our vision for being competitive. And I think that almost went to the wayside a few years ago when Vanderbilt was so focused on retention and so focused on supplementing through the portal that in a lot of ways it didn't have the resources to allocate to high school kids. So they're going to need to really take a step there. And honestly, they have in the 2027 classes. Clark Lea's best class in terms of total depth and the average quality of player they're getting, and I think that's a big step for them. Obviously, they're going to have to nail evaluations that other schools won't still, even with increased money, but I think Vanderbilt's in a good spot high school recruiting-wise, and that makes this thing a lot more sustainable in a way that maybe it even wasn't when they beat Alabama or went on that 7-6 run a few years ago.
Joey, before we let you go, I do want to sneak in one basketball question. Vanderbilt made big news recently when Gabe Neesmith announced that he is going to reclassify and join the Commodores for this coming season to team up with Tyler Tanner. What does Neesmith's arrival do for this program? How high do you think Vanderbilt will be ranked in the AP preseason top 25 because of this?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's interesting because I still think the jury's out on how much Neesmith's actually going to give them, just because he's an off-the-bounce wing that wasn't with them for the summer. But I imagine they're going to be at minimum a top 15 team in most polls. And honestly, they should be at this point. To me, the Gabe Neesmith news, more than anything Neesmith gives them, indicates to me that they're going all in on this year, and we're going to think he has a contender on his hands and has a team that can play into the second weekend and beyond. He told Gabe Neesmith, and this will be in a story in a few weeks, I'm kind of spoiling it here, but he told Gabe Neesmith basically that I need one more guy. I need one more guy to help us make a push here if we're really going to be a contender. And he thought Gabe Neesmith was that guy, and he went and got it done and got him a year early. So I think they could get a Final Four team. To me, Neesmith has to be a better catch-and-shoot guy than what they have on the roster if they're going to do it. I think he's got a great great off-the-bounce skill set, but he's got to improve his catch-and-shoot game to be a complementary player, and he's got to be a better defender. If he can be that, he could really help them. But it might be a work in progress for a little bit, considering him going to school early.
Joey Dwyer of Vandy on SI has been our guest on D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick. You can go to SI.com right now and read all of his coverage from SEC Media Days down in Tampa. Joey, thank you so much for your time. We'll have to do this again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
615-737-1025. We will react to what Joey had to say there. A lot of really interesting stuff from the Commodores down in Tampa for SEC Media Days. You can react to Joey as well at 615-737-1025. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service.
This program's momentum wasn't built by those that needed to be convinced to believe. It was the ones that saw it for themselves and chose to believe despite what the world may have said about where we were. But for me personally, I just kept coming back to what I knew to be true about Vanderbilt. This is that we're one of one. You know, you have a top university that's only gotten better. The reach of our Vanderbilt University brand has only gotten greater in the last few years. Credit to our chancellor. So you have a world-class institution in a world-class city playing in a world-class conference.
That was Vanderbilt head football coach Clark Lea today at SEC Media Days. Connor Nute, Adam Vingan here with you. Terry McCormick will join us at the top of the hour as we preview Titans training camp. But you heard Clark Lea there, and one of the biggest storylines, of course, surrounding the Vanderbilt football program this coming season. What will the post-Diego Pavia experience era look like? And Clark Lea smartly said today, quote, "We won't replicate Diego." I was reminded of this yesterday, Connor, as I was searching social media. There are only 5 quarterbacks in SEC history with 3,000 pass yards and 800 rush yards in a season. Of course, Diego Pavia, Jaden Daniels, Dak Prescott, Johnny Manziel, and Tim Tebow. That's it. That's exclusive company.
Yeah, that's good company.
That's 3 Heisman Trophy winners in Tebow, Manziel, and Daniels. And, of course, Dak Prescott has gone on to have a great career in the NFL. So there is no way that Jared Curtis or Blaise Berlowitz, but mostly Jared Curtis, can replace what Diego Pavia brought to the Commodores the past couple of seasons. But smartly, we know Clark Lea. He's not going to offer any red meat to people like us to debate and yell about. He even said today during a smaller scrum with local reporters that he's open to playing multiple quarterbacks if he hasn't named a full-time starter ahead of Vanderbilt's season opener against Austin Peay. So it could be Jared Curtis and Blaise Berlowitz to start. But Clark Lea said all of the right things today. As Joey told us, no one was saying anything. Clark Lea wasn't saying anything. The players representing Vanderbilt didn't say anything. They did not tip their hand to what this season is going to look like. And after we all have experienced the Diego Pavia experience, I am really curious about what this Vanderbilt football team is going to look like.
Yeah, that's why I asked Joey about the focal point of the offense, because I don't think there's any debating that Diego Pavia was the focal point of Vanderbilt's offense and how they flowed. Cedric Alexander is interesting to me, just because not from a yardage standpoint, but because of how elusive he is and how capable of getting into the end zone he is. That's the kind of guy that I think you can hitch your wagon to on the offense and see how it goes. Ultimately, just like every football team, and Derek would tell you the same thing, it's dependent on how the quarterback plays. And they've got sort of a decision to make at that position. I mean, if you really want to start Blaise Berlowitz, then go for it. I wouldn't touch it. I would start Jared Curtis personally, just because he's only going to learn by doing. But it is interesting just because the focal point of the offense last year was Diego, obviously. Heisman candidate. Finished 3rd in voting, 4th, if I'm not mistaken.
He was the runner-up.
The runner-up, that's right. So how are you going to be able to replicate that? I'm not sure. That's why it's interesting, but I think there are ways to do that. The running back. Joey mentioned the tight end that they have. He's not going to be Eli
Stowers.
Eli Stowers. I knew it was Eli something. I almost said Eli Drinkwitz, and I'm like, no,
that would be Missouri's coach.
Eli Stowers.
Eli Stowers, yes.
But you can still get production out of that. You have receivers that are capable of making catches and making big plays. Look, you've got to be able to create a productive offense because you're playing in arguably the toughest conference in all of America, in the SEC. from a schedule standpoint, that's important. So Vanderbilt's got to find the steady hand on offense, and whether that's your quarterback, whether that's your running back, whether that's your tight end, whether that's your receivers, you have to find something. So I'm interested to see how they do that.
Vanderbilt's offense was one of the most efficient offenses in all of college football this past season, but the Commodores have been hit pretty hard by attrition. Pavia is gone. 3 of the top 4 receivers are gone. 4 starting offensive linemen are gone. If we're talking specifically about the offensive side of the ball. So I'm wondering what would be acceptable for Vanderbilt football fans this coming season, because I think it's going to be very difficult for the Commodores to replicate the success they had this past season. 10 wins, most in school history, barely missed the college football playoff. You could certainly make an argument that the Commodores deserved to be included in the college football playoff, but they just missed the cut. I'm wondering what Vanderbilt fans would accept this season. ESPN's projections have Vanderbilt at 6.5 wins this season. So barely bowl eligible? And I have optimism that the Commodores can have a successful season. I'm not predicting them to win double-digit games again. But we talked about this yesterday, Connor. I am curious about how Vanderbilt can carry over the momentum from the past couple of years. 17 wins total over the past 2 seasons. That's been done only once in program history under James Franklin, who won 18 games over 2 seasons in 2012 and 2013. I think between the football program, the basketball programs, we know the history of the baseball program. We know how much money Vanderbilt has invested in athletics. There was a time, Willie will tell you, there was a time when athletics frankly did not matter at Vanderbilt. I think those days are over. I think both basketball teams are going to be really, really good this season. You've got Michaela Blakes on the women's side. You have Tyler Tanner on the men's side. I think both of those squads could be top 10, top 15 programs this season in college basketball. The baseball team, of course, had a down season this past season, but you know the Commodores are always going to be in the mix in the college baseball world. So I don't want to speak for Vanderbilt fans. So you guys tell me, 615-737-1025. I'm not sure how accepting Vanderbilt fans will be. They're not going to say, wow, the Commodores only won 6 games this year. Fire Clark Lea. That's not happening. No. The man just signed a new contract. But I do think there's a danger, not just for Vanderbilt specifically, but I think there's a danger when a team sort of comes out of nowhere and has unprecedented success. If you aren't able to sustain it, the attention that you earned from being so good can fall off rapidly. So I do think there is a risk that if Vanderbilt falls off somewhat significantly this season, that some people may say, oh, well, it was fun with Diego Pavia for a couple of years back to being the doormats of the SEC.
Yeah.
So I do think there is a really important opportunity here for Vanderbilt, even if the Commodores do not reach the heights they reached last season. I do think it's important that they at least show steady growth year over year now that Pavia is gone.
I agree. I believe, especially on the recruiting trail, when you're in a conference with Alabama, Georgia, LSU, and Tennessee, who are recruiting 5 stars year in and year out, you've got to be able to keep somewhat pace with them. As far as fan base mentality, I think inside the Vanderbilt fan base, I don't think there would be too much pessimism. I don't think there would be, let's fire Clark Lea because he only won 6 games this year instead of 10 like he did last year. Outside of Vanderbilt, maybe there's some of that in the conference where, well, Vandy's back to being the old doormat of the SEC. It's basically a bye week every time we got to play them. But I think we got to take a reality check here and just look at Vanderbilt and how far they've come just over the last 3 years of Clark Lea's tenure. Started off a 2-win program, Then the next year they go 7-6 on the season, win their bowl game. And then last year they have the best season in program history. So you're right. They've got to show some steady growth. And like I told you yesterday, I think there's a possibility they could come back to earth this season just because of how young and how much they had to replace this season. But I think they're going to be showing some steady growth over the next few years. This isn't your mama's Vanderbilt. This isn't your granddaddy's Vanderbilt. This is the new Vanderbilt where they care about their athletic programs. And it's not just football. So I think you're going to see some major growth of Vanderbilt athletics over the next few years.
ESPN is projecting that the Commodores will win 3.9 conference games. So let's round it up to 4. The Commodores SEC schedule this season: at Auburn, at Georgia, at home to Ole Miss and Arkansas, at Kentucky, at Mississippi State, home to Alabama, at Florida, home to Tennessee. What do you make of that SEC slate?
It's tough, especially going to Auburn, which is a tough place to play no matter how good or how bad Auburn is. Georgia is going to be I don't want to say insurmountable because any given Saturday, right? But Georgia is going to be a massive challenge for them in Athens, probably a night game, I would say. Tennessee, of course, is a rival. Alabama's coming here, but I would imagine they don't want to repeat what happened here 2 years ago. So other than that, I think there are games that they could win. Arkansas, I think, is going to be at the very bottom of the SEC. You're going to see Kentucky, who is a toss-up to me. I predicted they go 7-5, but everyone around here thinks I'm crazy for saying that. That's going to be a toss-up.
Well, you heard Will Stein yesterday.
Yeah, and people are mad at him, and I don't really understand why. But
I mean, look, it worked for Kurt Signetti. It's
calling a shot.
It's a risk. It's a risk. Knowing the history of the Kentucky football program, you know that much better than I do.
Yeah,
but you know what? It's the attention economy, and people are talking about Kentucky football in the middle of July.
Yeah.
So he nailed it. Will Stein nailed it.
I mean, he's got you talking about him, and I don't think it was a selfish thing like people are making it out to be. But as far as Vanderbilt's concerned, that's going to be a game that it depends on the battle of the quarterbacks. Is Kenny Minchie going to be a good quarterback for Kentucky? We'll see. Is Blaise Berlowitz / Jared Curtis going to be your quarterback of the future? We'll see. Overall, I think the schedule is balanced for Vanderbilt, but I feel like there's going to be just a down-to-earth period they go through this season where I don't want to say they come back to reality, but they're not climbing and swimming with the sharks of the top of the SEC anymore. I could see them going 7-5, 6-6.
Rick says, I think Vandy has always cared about sports. It's just they weren't willing to cheat like everyone else in the SEC. But you saw what happened when the playing field was leveled and everybody was allowed to spend money. The school with the highest IQ spent the money the wisest. I mean, that is a take.
When I say they don't care about sports, I mean they don't care about sports on the level that Alabama cares about its football program.
Right. I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
But I do think generally the interest in athletics, the support for athletics has risen significantly at Vanderbilt, which is why I do think there is pressure on the Commodores this season to show that these past 2 years weren't only because of Diego Pavia, and now he's gone, and now things will go back to the way they were when the Commodores were 2-10 and just an easy win for teams in the SEC. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, Terry McCormick of MainStreet Media.
All right.
He's here. He'll join us for the following hour, for the next hour, as we prepare for Titans training camp. Rookies report later this week. Veterans report a week from today. Yes, we've almost made it to Titans training camp. So Terry is here. We'll pick his brain about the Tennessee Titans. If you've got questions for Terry, you can get them in starting now at 615-737-1025. Terry McCormick coming up next. But before we get to Terry, speaking of SEC Media Days, 1025 The Game will have updates each day during SEC Media Days, like we just did. Coverage is brought to you by Shaneco, Tri-State Water, Power, and Air in the Music City kickoff game featuring Ole Miss taking on Louisville September 6th at Nissan Stadium. Get your tickets today at NashvilleSports.com. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Adam Vingan, Connor Nute, Brandon Bigsby, Terry McCormick in studio with us. Throughout the week, during the 4 o'clock hour, we will have Titans reporters in studio with us to help us preview Titans training camp, which starts next week. Rookies report to camp on Thursday. Veterans report 1 week from today. Terry, how are you? Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'm doing well.
So I want to start our conversation by asking you 2 questions that I think can help us start our discussion about Titans training camp. Let's start with this. What is the biggest non-Cam Ward storyline of Titans training camp?
I would have to say the offensive line and what's going to happen there. That's number one, because you don't know who the starting center is going to be. You don't know who the starting right guard is going to be. And you don't know if your tackles are going to be up to the task of protecting Cam Ward. The other thing is just overall general depth everywhere except maybe on the defensive line.
Second question. What is the most interesting storyline to you, Terry McCormick?
Well, obviously the Cam Ward saga, how he's going to mesh with Brian Daboll is right there near the top of the list. How much Brian Daboll is going to have control of the offense with Robert Saleh being a defensive guy. And then I'll throw you a wild card in there. What happens to Will Levis?
I think that is a question a lot of Titans fans are wondering. And we were talking about this actually before we came on the air. Terry, I've maintained, and you're around the team on a daily basis, so you would know better than me. I have maintained that the longer Will Levis is on the roster, the more of a distraction it becomes. And not because I think Will Levis himself is going to be a distraction. He's going to say something that's going to generate a lot of headlines. We're going to talk hours and hours about it, but just his presence. Because although Will Levis was out of sight and out of mind last season after having surgery right before the season, we know how fans feel about backup quarterbacks generally. And I still think there are a lot of Titans fans who feel like Will Levis was given a raw deal and he deserves an opportunity with a more experienced coaching staff. And if Cam Ward gets hurt or if Cam Ward struggles, you're going to start hearing people talk about Will Levis, even if those same people were complaining about Will Levis 2 years ago. What do you think of my theory?
I don't dismiss it out of hand. I mean, I don't, like you said, I don't think Will Levis in and of himself will be a distraction. His job is to be as good a soldier as he can be and play as well as he can play when he gets opportunities in practice and in preseason, and either try to buy himself a ticket out of here with his play or an opportunity here if they decide to keep him on the roster for the entire season. But you're right. The problem is because Will Levis is the former starter, the pressure now becomes on Cam Ward to succeed and for the Titans to take steps forward with Cam Ward, which they are trying to do, or you'll start to hear some rumblings of people wanting to see Will Levis. Again, it's only natural. But the thing of it is, there is one thing I think that maybe throws a dagger into your theory.
Okay.
All right. Who drafted Cam Ward?
Rand Carthon.
Mike Borgonzi.
Oh, that's right. I'm 1 year.
Yes. Yeah, I know.
My ears all
it all
screwed up.
runs together.
Yes. There has been so many changes in that front office. My apologies. It was Mike Borgonzi.
Mike Borgonzi. So Mike Borgonzi.
And Rand Carthon drafted Will Levis.
Yes.
There we go.
So Mike Borgonzi has a vested interest in seeing Cam Ward, his guy, get every opportunity to succeed because he was the number 1 overall pick. The main reason Will Levis only got 1 year to show what he could do was because he was the 2nd round pick and the guy who drafted him got fired.
I can see you poking holes in my logic, and that's why you're here. You wrote a story recently for the Nashville Ledger about similarities you see between this season and the 2024 season. There's a new coaching staff. There's a new play caller for a young quarterback. The Titans spent big in free agency. My question to you, Terry, as you looked at the similarities, why will it work this time after it did not work 2 years ago?
There's two possible reasons. One, Cam Ward gets it, starts to figure things out, and he takes a big step forward, and the Titans are better for it, and they have their guy for the next 5 to 10 years. That would be theory number one as to why it could be better. Theory number two is this. The coaching staff that they brought in with Robert Saleh, Brian Dable, they retained John Fossil, Gus Bradley, much more experience than the crew that Brian Callahan had when he had first-time coordinators and first-time play callers everywhere. And then also, Callahan and Carthon promised everyone in 2024 that this was going to be, quote, a competitive rebuild, that this team would compete and play hard and play well and surprise people in 2024 with all the additions that they had made. That didn't happen. So in 2025, when Mike Borgonzi got the job and Chad Brinker, who's the latest to get shown the door.
Yes.
When they brought in, Borgonzi, and then later Borgonzi brought in Saleh, they basically, when they had the number one pick and they took Cam Ward, they embraced the rebuild. They didn't lie to us this time and say it's going to be competitive. They said, it's going to take some time. It's going to be bad for a while, in so many words. And it was bad for a while. And there's a chance it could still be bad. But at least they've leveled with the fan base and the people who are covering the team. So I think with all that said, the experience that the coaching staff that's there now brings to the table is much better. It's like this. When I get on an airplane and I see the pilot standing there in the doorway as I get on, I'm pushing my suitcase down the aisle to find a spot for it. I kind of like to see that guy have a few gray hairs. I don't want to look like he just started shaving last week.
I get that. I always thought, by the way, that the term competitive rebuild was an oxymoron. I'm reminded of my days covering the Predators. David Poyle also used the term competitive rebuild. And I guess there are competitive rebuilds in sports, but I always thought those two words should not be next to each other.
I agree. The only time I've ever seen it work was in 2016 when the Yankees seemed to catch fire after they had sold at the trade deadline. And then all of a sudden, Aaron Judge became Aaron Judge for the first little glimpse. And Gary Sanchez was playing out of his mind, and they nearly made the postseason after having given up and thrown in the towel at the end of July.
You mentioned offensive line, Terry, and I think that's an important thing to look at this season. But there's one guy specifically on the offensive line I'm intrigued at, and that's J.C. Latham, a guy that hasn't necessarily delivered to the point you want him to through his first 3 years. Penalties were the issue with him last year, as well as staying healthy. How much do you need to see him improve to be able to justify him as a first-round pick?
I need to see a big step forward like Peter Skoronski took last year. I think that's what everybody wants to see out of J.C. Latham. If you're following the Titans as a fan, you want to see J.C. Latham. They drafted him to be the left tackle.
Yep.
But now he's the right tackle. So he needs to solidify himself there. He needs to take a major step. He needs to be a guy that they're talking about giving an extension to in 2027, not just another guy that's going to play out his 4 or 5 years here and then move on somewhere else like so many first rounders have for this team.
What do you make of the battles on the offensive line? You've got a battle at center. You want to see if Austin Schlottman or maybe even who you just drafted, and I am blanking.
Pat Coogan.
Pat Coogan, thank you. And then at right guard, you have Jackson Slater battling Cordell Volson. What do you make of those battles going on the offensive line?
The center battle concerns me more than the right guard battle. Right guard is kind of a find somebody to play their spot more so than some of the other positions. Not that it's not an important spot, but you think about when this team has been good, they've had good centers.
Right.
Going back all the way to when I first started covering the team, it was Mark Stepnoski, and then it was Kevin Long. And later it was Kevin Mawai, Justin Hartwig. It was recently Ben Jones. And this team has not had a good offensive line since Ben Jones and Taylor Lewan were still active players.
Right.
So it's been a while. They've got the left guard spot figured out. The left tackle spot's in kind of a holding pattern with Dan Moore. If he can just, be average and not have Cam Ward run for his life every week, then you'd accept that. And then the center position, though. That's because that's the guy that communicates with Cam Ward. That's the guy that's going to communicate to the remainder of the offensive line to get the play calls right. That's the guy who's going to help set up the running game. Everything is predicated off the center. Schlopman has never really been a full-time starter. And they brought in this other guy, and his name slips my mind. They signed him right at the end.
I know what you're talking about.
Right at the end of minicamp, and he does have some experience. I think ideally, Pat Coogan would be a guy that sits and learns for a year. Same thing with Carmona. Sits and learns for a year, and then comes in ready to compete for a job in year 2. Back when the Titans' offensive line was consistently good under Mike Munchak, that's what they did. Guys like David Stewart, Eugene Amano, Justin Hartwig, and the list goes on and on and on. They'd be day 3 picks. The only time they would ever spend a high pick on an offensive lineman was a left tackle.
Yeah.
And then everybody else was rounds 3 through 7 on the offensive line. But Munchak would coach those guys up. They'd basically get a red shirt year as a rookie, maybe be active as a backup for a couple of games a year, but they cut their teeth in practice. And then by training camp year 2, a lot of those guys not only competed, but they won starting positions. And that's kind of how they kept things going for so long.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think you're right in that the offensive line is essential to developing a young quarterback in Cam Ward. And if he doesn't have that, there's going to be some problems. So it's interesting to watch for sure.
No doubt. I mean, because when you're talking about the problems that this team has had, it all stems from the offensive line, and it goes back well before Cam Ward. It goes back before Will Levis. It goes back to the final year where Ryan Tannehill got hurt because the offensive line couldn't protect him, and the team went down the toilet. Now, you can say, yes, they traded A.J. Brown and all that, but that team was still they were relatively competitive as long as Tannehill was healthy. But once the O-line broke down and Tannehill got hurt, everything was out the window.
Yeah.
And they haven't recovered.
For sure.
What are your expectations for Peter Skoronski's next contract? We were talking about this last week, and it wouldn't shock me if Peter Skoronski became one of the highest paid interior offensive linemen in the NFL as soon as his new contract gets agreed upon. Do you expect that to happen at any point during training camp?
I think it could. That the previous history of the franchise has been to give guys extensions before the regular season starts.
I remember Taylor Lewan with the Boss Hog.
Yes.
With the Boss Hog costume. I happened to be there that day. So I'm not sure Peter Skoronski is going to do the same thing, but please
probably
continue.
Not. But I could see him getting a contract that pays him among the 10 best guards in the league, maybe even the 5 best. I think, he probably needs a little bit more recognition and accomplishment, do it again this year before I'd make him, the highest paid guard. But I think top 5 to top 10 money certainly is within the realm of possibility for Peter Skoronski this year.
Do you see him as all pro caliber? Because we'll debate about whether or not Peter Skoronski should have been the 11th overall pick in his draft class. I think of Quentin Nelson from the Indianapolis Colts, who I believe was the 6th overall pick in his draft year. He's been a Pro Bowler every season of his NFL career, I believe now 8 seasons, and a 3-time first-team All-Pro. So I think there are people out there who believe that until Skoronski can do that, he hasn't justified his draft slot. Where are you on that?
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think for offensive linemen, especially, because there are no stats. There are no stats for offensive linemen unless you want to count holding penalties or something. But I think the team has to get better. The team has to be better around him. The sack numbers need to go down. The rushing numbers, if Tony Pollard rips off 1,400 yards this year for some reason, then Peter Skoronski is going to be the beneficiary of things like that. If the Titans can win 6, 7, 8 games, he's going to be the beneficiary because people are going to start to notice him. This team is out of sight, out of mind because they haven't had a primetime game in 2 or 3 years. And so with that said, no matter how well you play, a lot of people aren't noticing how good you are because you're on a team that's struggling. And sadly, they lump you in with everybody else when they say the Titans have a terrible offensive line.
Yes.
Even if it's guilt by association, even if you're having a good year.
I think it's impressive, actually more impressive, what Skoronski has been able to do. If you look at his Pro Football Focus grades, he's one of the best guards in the NFL, overall pass blocking, run blocking, playing on an offensive line that, as you said, Terry, is regularly ranked among the worst in the NFL. So I actually think that makes what Skoronski's been able to do even more impressive.
Sure. And I don't know that PFF grades or anything like that are the be all end all, but
Of
they
course.
are, but they're very helpful.
Yes.
And I think too, when you look at a guy like Skoronski, who he knows he's a solid player, he knows his assignments. He also knows the other guy's assignments. So when you're the good player out of a bad unit, there's sometimes the temptation to try and do more than you're capable of to help out. I mean, I saw that years ago with Keith Bullock when the Titans had a horrendous defense, I think around 2005 or somewhere around there. Had a bunch of guys hurt, had a bunch of young players, didn't know what they do, what they were doing really. Keith Bullock had been a Pro Bowl linebacker for several years for the Titans, but he had kind of an off season because Keith knew what to do, knew how to do it, but the guy next to him might not have known what to do. So he's leaving his assignment early to go help out with that assignment, and it creates another hole that didn't need to be there. So those types of things can happen. It's like when you play pickup basketball and, if you got one guy who's really good and the other four guys are slappies like me, you're going to, the guy who's really good is going to help out on defense. He's going to go in and rebound. He's going to try to do a little bit of everything to keep you in the game.
615-737-1025. Terry McCormick in studio with us to help us preview Titans training camp, rookies report later this week, veterans report a week from today. 615-737-1025. If you have questions for Terry, you can call or text us again. 615-737-1025. We'll continue the conversation coming up next. The football offseason coverage here on 1025 The Game is presented by Tennessee Brew Works and Parman Tractor and Equipment. Parman Tractor and Equipment, providing totally outrageous customer service. Visit parmantractor.com. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025. The Game. Adam Vingan, Connor Nute, Terry McCormick in studio with us, helping us preview Titans training camp. Let's go to our phone line, driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Adam in Portland. Adam, thank you for calling and waiting. Please go ahead.
T-Mac, I ain't got to talk to you in a long time, man. I'm glad you're on here. So I got a question for you. So the whole team, I'm excited to see the whole team. Carnell Tate, I'm excited for him. Gunnar Helm in the next year, Wandell Robinson, all the additions. But it feels like a glaring hole with this offensive line. Like, it has not been properly addressed. It's like negligently not been addressed. Now, I don't know if that's – I think Daddy Callahan and Baby Callahan were both horrifically, like, overrated coming in. I think they were frauds. So I'm wondering if you think Dable being there as opposed to the Callahans would instantly make that situation better despite not addressing it very well in the offseason.
Thank you, Adam. Go ahead, Terry.
I think it could. I think, Dable seems to bring a certain stability to the offense, maybe that was lacking with Brian Callahan being a first-time head coach and play caller, and also, first-timers for Nick Holtz and as an OC. And then I think Bo Hardigree had been a quarterback's coach and a play caller before, but that was a little later on. I think there's some of it is this. You can't make, as they say, a silk purse out of a sow's ears, that the old saying. Some of it, they just didn't have a lot to work with, but some of it is coaching and coaching styles. And I think, there are holes on that offensive line. Anytime there's competition, they say that that's good. But to my point on that, anytime there's competition, that means that somebody, is not good enough to have already secured a job. And especially on the offensive line and at quarterback and places like that, you want somebody to have that job in hand, and you want to roll with them and let them get as many reps as possible so that they can gel and mesh with their teammates and get ready to go.
What are your early impressions of Robert Saleh as Titans head coach?
I think he's a guy that comes in and kind of commands the room. I think his presence seems to be one that the players will buy into. Now, obviously he's going to have to get results fairly soon. I don't know, the message is going to get stale with anybody if you come out of the gate and you're 0-6 or something like that. But I think right now, I think he's commanding his presence is commanding. And I think that the coaching staff he's assembled is very experienced. And this is a team with a lot of young players, a lot of new players. And I think that that's something that's probably needed in this organization, is experienced guides who can teach these young players.
I'm curious for your opinion on something. We talked about this once Robert Saleh was hired and he was putting together his coaching staff. He's got head coaching experience. Brian Daboll has head coaching experience. Gus Bradley has head coaching experience. Bones Fossil has interim head coaching experience. But when you combine all of their records as a head coach or interim head coach, it's terrible. I don't have the number in front of me, but it's bad. Do you think that matters at all? Because I think there are going to be a lot of people as the season nears and Robert Saleh's gearing up for the regular season. People are going to look at the 20-36 record in New York. We always like to bring up the context of the quarterbacks that Robert Saleh had in New York. He didn't have Aaron Rodgers for very much time. He had Zach Wilson. He had Mike White. He had Trevor Siemian. He had Tim friggin' Boyle.
Okay? Tim Boyle, baby.
Okay, remember watching Tim Boyle in Titans preseason games? Remember how awful that was? Imagine starting him in a regular season football game. Robert Saleh had to do that as head coach of the New York Jets. But my larger question is, there's experience, but the win-loss records are not good. Does that matter at all? Should it matter at all?
It can if you allow it to matter. But I also think that, sometimes some guys learn from mistakes. Some guys learn from failed experiences, and some guys don't. And a lot of times the difference in learning and not learning is just what you said. If you're running Tim Boyle out there at quarterback, it doesn't matter how much you learn. It's probably not going to happen, and you're probably not going to win a whole lot of games. if you're running Tom Brady out there, then you can do whatever you want. It's like, I could have coached Michael Jordan. With all due respect to Phil Jackson, I could have coached Michael Jordan and got decent results.
What do you make of the staff overall as a whole, position coach wise?
I think it's a good group in terms of experience.
Yeah.
I think the key is how good are they going to be at teaching, because they've got a lot of new faces. I think I counted 46 of the 90 players coming to camp are guys who were not here last year, who were not Titans property last year. So that's a little over half. So they're going to need to teach it, and they're going to need to get these guys up to speed as quickly as possible, or else it could be pretty rough in the early going.
Overall, Eric Whitecott is a guy that stands out to me. I watched him a couple times in practice in the OTA period. Guy brings intensity to the practice field. What do you make of that whole position group with him at the helm?
He does. He's a disciple of Jim Washburn. Jim Washburn was one of my favorites out there. He was there when in the early years when I was covering the team, and we grew to have a good relationship. I got to catch up with him at Dave McGinnis's memorial service. And I think Aaron Whitecotton is cut from that same cloth. And he has even said as much. He said that Jim Washburn is a mentor of his. And so that's a good thing. That's a good thing, because those guys will play hard for Aaron Whitecotton the same way that guys in the past played hard for Jim Washburn.
How much of an impact do you think he'll have on the defensive line as a whole? I mean, obviously, with the edge rusher group you're bringing in, you have Jermaine Johnson, who you traded for. You have Keldrick Folk, who you just drafted. Obviously, in the interior, you have Jeffrey Simmons and John Franklin Myers. How much of an impact do you think Aaron Whitecotton can elevate those guys to?
I think he can. I think it can be a decent. I think it probably will be the best group on the team. That group of defensive tackles, especially with Jeffrey Simmons, obviously a first team All-Pro, a guy who just, got another contract extension, well-deserved, putting up the type of season he had last year while everything was falling apart around him. And you add a guy like John Franklin Myers, you trade for Jermaine Johnson, you're adding other role players like Solomon Thomas.
Yeah.
Some of the names escape me right now. And then, then you've got the holdovers. You've got your Femi Oladejos, and you've got, guys like that who are going to have to make an adjustment to a new position. But I think this group, with the numbers that they have, because they're going to go 9 or 10 deep, the numbers that they have, they could be the best unit on this team by far.
I've got a couple of questions for you, Terry, on Daboll specifically. Number one, when you analyze his scheme, how do you think it's going to accentuate Cam Ward's strengths? What are the elements of Daboll's offensive game plan that you think are going to help Cam Ward reach the heights that he needs to reach in year 2?
Well, one of the things that's a change is it appears that they're working on a lot more option routes, which, if you, in layman's terms, when you're running your route as a receiver, you have to check the alignment, the technique of the guy who's covering you. And then you have maybe one of two options. You can either run, like, say, a post, or you can run it out off of that, or, just for example. And it's up to the quarterback and the receiver to be on the same page and both make the right read in order to get the ball where it needs to be and on time. It can be a little complicated at first, but I think it's one that a lot of teams use. If Derek were here, he could explain it 1,000 times better than I could. But it's similar to what the Titans ran, I think, when Derek did play here under Mike Heimerdinger. I think they ran a lot of those sorts of things. I think Daboll brings consistency. He brings a presence there. He's an intense guy. I think he's going to get the best out of Cam Ward. It's been said 1,000 times from the Titans, every coach and every GM that's passed through here since Cam has been here, what's the one thing that's coming out of their mouth? Cam Ward wants to be great. He puts in the work. Well, if Cam Ward is going to be great, then, he's got a guy in Brian Daboll who should know what it takes to help him get there because he worked with Josh Allen and some others.
The other question I have is, last season, Cam Ward clearly wasn't being coached to run. He did not scramble very much. Historically, Brian Daboll works well with quarterbacks who have that ability. I think the extreme would be Jackson Dart. Now, I certainly don't think Cam Ward is as reckless as Jackson Dart has shown himself to be early in his NFL career, but we know Josh Allen can scramble. Even Daniel Jones can scramble. Do you expect Brian Daboll to get Cam Ward in more positions this season to use his legs in the offense?
There will be some of that, but not a lot, I don't think. And here's why. There was a podcast making the rounds over the weekend where Cam Ward was on with it was James Harrison and
Joe Hayden.
Yeah,
Yep.
he was
James
on with
Harrison,
those
Joe
guys.
Hayden.
And one of the things that he said, and some people took it as a kind of a backhanded slap at Brian Callahan because he was talking about how much he had learned from Brian Daboll and how much, he lets the quarterbacks have input. I think one of the biggest differences from what Cam said and even what Daboll has said in the couple of times we've gotten to talk to him, whatever quarterback is in there, he wants to play to that quarterback's strengths. I think part of Brian Callahan's mistakes was he had coached Joe Burrow, he had coached Matthew Stafford, he had coached with Peyton Manning, coached him, and all of those guys play the game somewhat similarly. Would you agree?
You would know better than me.
But they play the game somewhat similarly. They're drop back passers. They're going to survey the field and they're going to deliver a pass that's going to be, on the money most of the time. I think part of Brian Callahan's undoing was he tried to mold Will Levis first and then Cam Ward second into the system that he ran because that system had worked at other stops.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Daboll, I think, is going to say, okay, what does Cam Ward do well? Let's find that. Let's find what he likes, what he does well, and let's mold the offense in that shape so that Cam Ward can get the most out of his abilities. Let's not ask him to do things that he's not good at or he's not capable of. And I think that is specific to every quarterback that he has on the roster. If Mitch Trubisky were to go into a game, I think he would probably have a set of plays for Mitch Trubisky that he's comfortable with, that he gets to run, that maybe Cam Ward wouldn't necessarily have run if he were still in the game. Same thing for Levis.
And Cam Ward, no one is going to confuse Cam Ward for Lamar Jackson out there. He doesn't have elite speed, but in my viewings of Cam Ward, he can be tough to take down. And I do think he's at his best when he's allowed to improvise a little bit and he gets out of the pocket. We know the spectacular first career touchdown pass to Eligaya Manor early in the season. I'm just wondering, just based on Daboll's history, if we might see a little bit more of that from Cam Ward, which I think would be good for him because I think he's at his best when he's not confined to the pocket.
There will probably be some of that. I would like to see more rollouts. Not some people have said they'd like to see more RPOs. No, I want to see more rollouts. Cut the field in half. Let the guy make a play by, finding an open space and then, surveying the field and finding a receiver after he's bought time. Because you're right. He's not necessarily a runner, but he's pretty good at moving in the pocket to find a window to throw from. And I think some of that comes from the fact that he's not the biggest guy. So being 6'1" or whatever he is, I think they list him at 6'2". I don't think he's 6'2". But he's about 6 foot, 6'1". I think some of that is out of necessity, because he's had to move and kind of weave his way around to find windows to throw through. And I think that that's a part of his game that is really an asset. Now, can you make a living doing that? No, you have to learn to throw from the pocket. You have to learn to, do the boring, mundane things, as Brian Callahan would say. And that part he was right about. You have to learn, that the 5-yard hitch route is your friend just as much as the 3rd and 20 bomb that you hit somebody on for a 50-yard gain. And that's what he's got to learn.
615-737-1025. We've got one more segment with Terry McCormick coming up next. If you've got a question for Terry on the Titans, call us, text us, 615-737-1025. We'll get to those coming up next. Connor Nute, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025. The Game, Connor Nute, Adam Vingan, Terry McCormick here with us for one more segment. If you've got questions on the Titans, call us, text us, 615-737-1025. Terry, I was astounded when I saw this earlier this week. Warren Sharp put out the most expensive wide receiver rooms in 2026. It shocked me to learn that the Tennessee Titans have the 6th most expensive wide receiver room in the NFL in 2026, behind the Bengals, the Cowboys, the Lions, the Steelers, and the Buccaneers. And when you look at those other 5 teams, there are a lot of top flight wide receivers in those rooms. Not so much here in Nashville, with the exception of Carnell Tate, but he's not breaking the bank necessarily. Does that shock you to find out that the Titans have the 6th most expensive wide receiver room in the NFL?
That does. Especially, I mean, Calvin Ridley took a pay cut to stay. Now they signed Wan'Dale Robinson to some pretty good money, but Carnell Tate's a rookie, and Alec Iomanner and Chim Dike are on second-year deals. So their top 5 guys, I'm a little surprised by that, because 3 of their top 5 guys are on rookie contracts.
What should be realistic expectations for Carnell Tate right after he was drafted? We did this exercise. I looked at, I think it was like top 10 drafted wide receivers over the past decade, averaged up all of their rookie seasons per 17 games, and it was something like roughly 85 to 90 receptions, more than 1,000 yards receiving, and I want to say somewhere between 5 and 6 touchdowns. I wish I still had those numbers in front of me. But when Titans fans watch Carnell Tate on a weekly basis, and I know Titans fans are extremely excited to watch Carnell Tate. They even saw he's apparently going to give away his jersey, like not his specific jersey, but he's gonna give away his jersey for Titans fans. That's great. What are realistic expectations for Carnell Tate in year 1?
I think you want him to be, I'm not going to quantify it with numbers necessarily. I think you want him to distinguish himself by year's end, that he is a number 1 type receiver. It would not surprise me if he leads the team in yards, but does not lead the team in receptions. I think Wan'Dale Robinson will lead the team in receptions, but I think Carnell Tate needs to lead the team in yards to show that he's a big play kind of guy.
Do you see the quote unquote number 1 receiver label evolving over the course of the season? Because I agree with you. I imagine starting the season, Cam Ward's going to rely a lot on Wan'Dale Robinson. Obviously, Daboll knows Wan'Dale Robinson, but I'm wondering, as the season progresses and Carnell Tate becomes more comfortable in the offense, more comfortable in the NFL, if that target share will switch dramatically from Robinson to Tate. How do you see the target share evolving over the course of the season?
I could see that happening. Now, the thing is, there's always the old rookie wall, as they say. So you have to hope that Carnell Tate doesn't do like Egbuka did in Tampa Bay last year, lit it up for about the first 10 games, then all of a sudden kind of disappeared once he hit a rookie wall. And of course, once Baker Mayfield was a cripple trying to play the quarterback position, as you've seen in the quarterback series.
Yes. What did you make of the Cam Ward portions of the quarterback series? Because frankly, I was disappointed by what we saw. I was not disappointed in Cam Ward. Like, man, he really came off like a jerk in that. But just, I felt like he was the 4th of 4, that he felt like a throw-in. I'm sure somebody has computed how much time Netflix spent with each quarterback in terms of what we saw on the show. And I have to imagine Cam Ward was way down near the bottom. I was disappointed by how little they spent on the firing of Brian Callahan. I would have really liked to see that. I would have really liked to see more about the "we ass" comments. They sort of glossed over that as well. I think the most interesting thing to me, Terry, about Cam Ward's appearance on the Netflix show is just how much he hates to lose. And the scene in Arizona after they came back to win that crazy game, how embarrassed he seemed by how the team celebrated that win. There was the game in Cleveland where he basically cursed out his teammates and they were huddling up, and he was like, "This is unacceptable," except he used a lot more colorful language. That to me was the most interesting thing. How much he clearly hates losing.
Yeah, I think that's it in a nutshell. I think, that kind of just says who Cam Ward is. Now, in fairness to Cam Ward, we all thought in Cleveland and in the post-game press conference that he was mad because Shedeur Sanders had dropped about almost 400 yards passing on them and had outplayed him individually. But, he said in the locker room and on the quarterback series that the reason he was mad is because the team fell apart in the fourth quarter and nearly blew the game. So that's interesting. But I think, looking at the quarterback series, I mean, let's be honest. Cam Ward may turn out to be a very good football player, but he's never going to be the most dynamic personality. And I think that probably was a factor in how much screen time he got.
I thought he showed more personality than I anticipated when I started watching the show.
Yes, but he still pales in comparison to Baker Mayfield.
Yes.
Who, probably could go to Hollywood after his career is over if he wants,
He's got it being an analyst written all over him when he's done playing. But speaking of quarterbacking in the NFL, I think when you quarterback, you need a safety blanket for your offense. And to me, Cam Ward has two options, and Wan'Dale Robinson and Gunnar Helm at the tight end position. How much of a factor do you think those guys can be on, say, like third down? You need a first down to keep the drive going as a safety blanket coming across the middle or in short down and distance.
Oh, I think absolutely Wan'Dale Robinson. I think Gunnar Helm, I think, has that potential, but I do think he'll play second fiddle to Robinson in that role. And I kind of wonder, too, how much play the tight ends are going to get in this offense, because you look at, what they have available to them. There's 4 to 5 wide receivers who are going to be getting snaps. Obviously, Robinson, they want Carnell Tate to step up and be a number one. You still got Calvin Ridley, and you've got DK and Eilmanner who fit in there. I think, Gunnar Helm's going to be on the field a lot. So is Daniel Bellinger. But I'm wondering how many targets those guys are going to get on a weekly basis with so many wide receivers needing to eat, so to speak, plus still with the running game. And then you've got Pollard and Spears who can also catch the ball out of the backfield.
What kind of role on offense do you think Jim DK plays this year, now that you have a wide receiver room with a little bit more depth than you had last year? Obviously, he was asked to do a lot last year when Ridley went down and Van Jefferson wasn't Van Jefferson you thought you were getting. So what do you think with all the depth that the wide receiver room has now? Not that it's spectacular, but you got more bodies there. So what's DK's role in the offense now?
Still going to be the return guy, but I think starts off as number 4. But then if Calvin Ridley falters or if somebody gets hurt, I think he's probably the first guy that moves up to be number 3. Although Eilmanner could overtake him in camp. That's possible.
Yeah.
But I think DK probably has a leg up because what you're getting. I think the best thing that could happen to Jim DK would be to be able to do in his career like Derek Mason did in his, and be able to play that return skill up and get your opportunities so that at some point you can also be a playmaker on the offense.
For sure.
Terry, thank you so much for coming in and smartening us up on the Tennessee Titans. We appreciate your insight. Good luck at training camp next week. And the reason why I say good luck is because have you felt how hot it is outside? You need to lather up that sunscreen, my friend.
Yeah, it's gonna be a scorcher. Yeah. I hope I did okay. I mean, I know that Nick Suss is going to come in here tomorrow with all kinds of odd statistics and in-depth commentary, and he's probably going to put me to shame, but thanks for having me.
Of course. No, you did a fantastic job. I feel smarter already. Terry McCormick has been our guest. Of course, you can read all of his coverage at MainStreet Media. Does an outstanding job covering the Tennessee Titans. He's done it for a long time. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, Josh Heupel had a funny comment yesterday at SEC Media Days, which got me wondering about something that we all are going to discuss coming up next. What are our favorite hostile homecomings in sports? 615-737-1025. Connor and I will debate coming up next. You're listening to DVD here on 1025 The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025. The Game. Adam Vingan, Connor Nute, Brandon Bigsby here with you. Hour number 3 of the program. A big, big thank you to Terry McCormick for joining us in the previous hour as we look ahead to Titans training camp, which starts next week. Terry told me the first practice is a week from tomorrow, which is just crazy to think about. But you know what?
But thank goodness.
Thank the good Lord above that training camp is here. We need some new material because now we are just feasting on the bones of SEC Media Days. And look,
Which I'm good with.
I mean, SEC Media Days, it is what it is. All media days, they are what they are. But you know what? It gets us talking about college football in the middle of the summer. And most often, there really isn't anything interesting that comes out of SEC Media Days or Big 12 Media Days or Big 10 Media Days or whatever, ACC Media Days. But I think the most entertaining question and response we got from SEC Media Days yesterday involved Tennessee head football coach Josh Heupel. As we all know, in September, Lane Kiffin and LSU will visit Ole Miss, and that is going to be must-see TV. But remember, 5 years ago, Lane Kiffin returned to Knoxville for the first time as coach of Ole Miss, and I believe it was an LSU reporter who asked this question to Josh Heupel because Lane Kiffin will come back to Knoxville this season on November 21st. Here's that question and answer with Josh Heupel.
Lane Kiffin made his return to Knoxville in your first year as a head coach. Things got a bit spicy. Do you think that fan base has kind of cooled off? And what do you expect in November when LSU comes to town?
Certainly hope our fan base hasn't cooled off. So, whether it's the grocery stores being fully stocked with mustard or, our sports stores, making sure that they got reinforcements on the golf balls. Hopefully Knoxville's ready for his arrival.
So that was Josh Heupel on Lane Kiffin, LSU at Tennessee on November 21st. And if you're a Vols fan, you remember what happened about 5 years ago when Ole Miss came to Knoxville. Lane Kiffin's return to Neyland Stadium. There were mustard bottles thrown, golf balls thrown, I guess, vape pens, liquor bottles, hot dogs, you name it. They littered the field at Neyland Stadium. And this got me thinking about my favorite hostile homecomings in sports.
Oh, yeah.
615-737-1025. What are your favorite hostile homecomings in sports? LSU at Ole Miss on September 19th is absolutely going to be on this list in a few months. LSU at Tennessee on November 21st probably won't have the same juice because Lane Kiffin has already been back to Knoxville once, but it's been a while. So, Connor, I have a list of some of my favorites.
Okay.
And I want to know if you agree with my list of favorite hostile homecomings in sports.
Let's hear it.
I'm going to go in chronological order.
Okay.
Number 1, LeBron James returning to Cleveland.
Oh, yeah.
With the Miami Heat.
I remember watching that one live.
In December 2010. His first visit to Cleveland since the decision. You remember how crushed Cavaliers fans were, burning jerseys, other things. And I'm not sure I've ever seen an arena or a stadium united in their collective hatred of one person, the way the Cavaliers fans absolutely gave it to LeBron James the first time he went back to Cleveland. And by the way, he had an outstanding game. But here's one of my favorite parts of that game, because I went back earlier and watched some highlights. So as you might imagine, LeBron James is in the starting lineup for the Miami Heat. And when his name is announced, the boos rain down.
It was awesome.
Also in the starting lineup for the Miami Heat that night, former fan favorite in Cleveland, Zydrunas Ilgauskas, who I had no recollection of playing for the Miami Heat. But Ilgauskas was in the lineup for the Heat, and he was given a hero's welcome right after LeBron James got booed out of the building. So I got a kick out of that when I watched that earlier. But number one on my list, chronologically, LeBron James returning to Cleveland with the Miami Heat in December of 2010.
I agree with that one. I was 6, but I remember watching that one because it was a big one. I think it was on ABC maybe in prime time. I remember his night game, but I just remember hearing the deafening boos going throughout Cleveland. It was awesome. And I didn't know what to make of it at the time, but now as an adult, I go back and watch it, and I think it's going to be hard to top that one. I'm curious to see how you do this.
All right. Number 2, again, chronologically. This is not a power ranking. I'm doing it in chronological order. Number 2, Kevin Durant returning to Oklahoma City with the Golden State Warriors in February 2017. I read a story on ESPN.com that the Warriors tripled the amount of security personnel they typically travel with in advance of this game. They were that concerned for the well-being of Kevin Durant. I believe his mom was also at the game. The Warriors tripled the security presence around the team leading into that game.
That was another one I remember watching just because I remember it was on Thanksgiving. Or no.
February 2017.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to remember the day that Durant announced he was signing with the Warriors. Was it on the 4th of July? It was on the 4th of July. He announced he was going with the Warriors, and it shocked the entire basketball world. And we were all looking forward to the next time they were going to meet up, because they had just met up in the playoffs, and the Warriors obviously beat the Thunder to go to the finals.
All right. Number 3, chronologically, John Tavares returns to New York with the Toronto Maple Leafs in February 2019, jeered as a traitor in his return to Long Island. Fans were wearing jerseys that said traitor and Judas. This from friend of the station, Greg Wyshynski of ESPN.com. Quote, they, meaning Islanders fans, placed Tavares' jersey on the road where cars could run over it. According to one Islanders fan, cars that missed the jersey on their first pass were instructed to drive over it again.
Oh my God.
I mean, that was a big deal when John Tavares left Long Island to go to Toronto. You know, he posted the photo of him in his Maple Leafs pajamas with his Maple Leafs bedding. It did not go over well in New York. I think everybody there expected that he was going to leave when his contract expired. But the beauty of that, too, was it wasn't until the second half of the season. It was February 2019. So Islanders fans had several months to prepare, and they did not disappoint. So I would say John Tavares returning to New York with the Maple Leafs in February 2019. And, of course, as we mentioned previously, Lane Kiffin going back to Knoxville with Ole Miss in October of 2021. So those are 4 hostile homecomings that come to mind for me.
Yeah, Lane Kiffin in Knoxville certainly comes to mind for me. I was watching that one live too, and I remember the minute the golf ball came out. That was a fun time. And you know, I remember being upset with the Tennessee fans because I thought Lane Kiffin was kind of on the redemption path. It seemed like he had, you know, cleansed his image just a little bit. It seemed like that this past year, and then he decided to I'm Lane Kiffin again. So that's how that one is. For me, some that come to mind, of course, as a Kentucky fan, watching John Calipari come back to Rupp Arena for the first time with Arkansas was a big one. He got a bit of a mixed reaction.
I was going to ask you about that. I'm surprised you did not bring that up, John Calipari returning to Rupp Arena.
That's certainly one.
In February 2025.
If I were there, I would not have booed just because he won a championship there. It seemed to be sort of a more mutual parting of ways than it was he was actually being a traitor. But I understood why. And the one that kind of taints that one for me is Arkansas kind of dominated that game, and they came out of Rupp Arena winners. So we have the opportunity for redemption in Rupp this year. That certainly comes to mind for me. Let's see. Albert Pujols, I remember coming back to St. Louis the first time when he left for the Angels. That was another mixed bag. But, you know, Cardinals fans are pretty upstanding. Like, they applaud everyone that comes back that used to play for their team. That was the first time I remember seeing one that didn't go that way. I'm trying to think of some other ones here. Let's see.
Caleb says the golf ball was not for Kiffin. It was because of the terrible officiating.
Yeah, okay. I'm sure.
Was the mustard for Kiffin?
Yeah. What was for Kiffin?
Was the hot dog for Kiffin? No, I don't know.
Yeah. That was a fun one. As a fan, I mean, I am partially an Ole Miss guy. My grandfather played there, competed for a national title there in the 60s. I think they won in 61, actually. But so I have family ties to the Rebels. I'm big blue through and through. But, you know, I'll find myself rooting for the Rebels as a number two, a distant number two. I mean, if we're talking about Kentucky, of course, Pitino coming back to Rupp
Glenn
Arena.
from Greenbrier just said Pitino backing Rupp as the Louisville coach.
When he flipped off the student section as the Louisville coach, that was, we hated Rick Pitino. Now we like him because he's kind of come back around and he's a huge advocate for Mark Pope. So he is involved with the program now, sort of, even though he's coaching another team with St. John's. But that's probably my number one answer right there is Pitino coming back for the first time as the Louisville coach.
615-737-1025. Your favorite hostile homecomings in sports in honor of Lane Kiffin and his return to Ole Miss with LSU during the season. Jeff says every time Ryan Suter came back to town.
It was fun for like a year, and then you guys kept going.
I wish I would have been there for the first time. I covered the Predators for a long time. Anytime Ryan Suter was in the lineup for the Minnesota Wild here in Nashville, the boos were loud, and I would have loved to have been there for the first time. The first time Ryan Suter came back to Nashville as a member of the Minnesota Wild, the Minnesota Mild, the Minnesota Wild. Jeff also, Scott and Shelbyville also said just because of how long it went on booing Ryan Suter when he came back to Nashville every time he touched the puck, because it went on for years and years. It goes in the hostile Hall of Fame. One texter says, let's see, I just found it. Sol Campbell's first game back at White Hart Lane, another great one. An entire stadium of Tottenham fans with Judas signs wishing him nothing but death and despair. The texter also mentions Pujols should have never been booed. Won us 2 world titles. Was disgusted by that as a Birds fan. If you win me a title, I'll never boo you, no matter what happens after. Where do you stand on that?
That's a complicated. Like I said, I would have cheered Calipari when he came back. I'm not a fan of him. I think he's kind of a fraud and a used car salesman now. But you know, every time Arkansas comes into Kentucky's path, I want to beat the absolute hell out of them. But I don't know. That's an interesting question because I feel like there's instances where I would, and there's instances where I wouldn't. Like if, let's see. I'm trying to think of an example. Like if PK Subban came back, if let's say the Predators win the Stanley Cup in 2017, and would you still cheer PK Subban? Because I know a lot of Predators that aren't fans of his.
I don't see PK Subban as a villain. And that trade, you know, it made sense at the time. So I don't look, PK Subban certainly had his detractors. I'm not sure I put it in the same category. Gator Tim says Jimmy Vesey also booed vehemently. That is true. That was a really fun game. The first time Jimmy Vesey came to Nashville after he jilted the Predators and signed with the Rangers. I remember because I was watching the Rangers bench because I wanted to make sure I saw the first time Vesey hit the ice. Even before his skate blade hit the ice for his first official shift, as he was just stepping over the boards, the boo, like it started before it even hit the ice. That is a good one, Jimmy. One texter says, yeah, I agree. You don't have to be a fan, but we're all square at that point as far as I'm concerned. A neutral reaction. If someone comes back to town who helped your team win a championship.
I agree with that.
Let's go to Ryan in Nashville on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunted.com. Ryan, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, I got to you got Brett Favre's return to Green Bay when he came with Minnesota,
Oh yeah.
and then the Ryan Suter one. I was there. They were staying at the Hilton across street from Bridgestone. They were fans. They were standing by the door waiting for him to walk across so they can boo him the entire time he walked into the building. It was bad that night. They made sure that he knew that he was not welcomed in that arena.
Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, I wish I could have been there for the first Ryan Suter return to Nashville. That was before my time in Nashville. But
My mom's chimed in.
All right, Mrs. Nute.
My mom said she's a huge Cowboys fan. So she says Deion Sanders playing with the Cowboys against the Atlanta Falcons for the first time. Apparently they booed the absolute crap out of him.
Scott in Waverly says, I was at the Titans game when Derrick Henry first came back, and it was a mixed bag of cheers and boos.
Why would you boo Derrick Henry?
Wait a minute. Why am I forgetting?
He hasn't played here yet.
They haven't played here yet. The Ravens. The Titans are going to Baltimore this season. I believe that will be the first time the Titans have faced the Ravens since Derrick Henry left. Unless I have completely memory hold that game.
I don't think he's played here yet.
I have no recollection. Brandon's back there Googling for us just to double check, but I have no recollection of Derrick Henry playing against the Titans yet. It's going to happen this coming season. By the way, I believe the Titans are 8.5-point underdogs on the road at Baltimore.
The last time that the Titans and Baltimore played was October 15th, 2023. So that was well before.
Yes.
Yeah, he still had.
So Scott, I want to know what you're watching, my friend. But I have no recollection of that. So at least I know I'm not insane. 615-737-1025. Josh Heupel had a funny answer yesterday at SEC Media Days about Lane Kiffin making yet another trip to Knoxville in November, which led me to ask this question. What are your favorite hostile homecomings in sports? Certainly Kiffin going to Ole Miss in September is going to be on that list. LeBron James going back to Cleveland with the Heat. Kevin Durant going back to Oklahoma City with the Warriors. John Tavares going back to Long Island with the Maple Leafs. Lane Kiffin going back to Knoxville for the first time. 615-737-1025. Connor Nute, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick 1025. The game, Adam, Vingan, Connor, Nute here with you. Talking our favorite hostile homecomings in sports. 615-737-1025. By the way, the texter who mentioned Derrick Henry's return to Nashville, he corrected himself. He meant Mike Vrabel returning to Nashville this past season.
That's a pretty weird mix-up there, but all right.
I mean, look, it happens. We're driving. You're doing talk to text. Weird things happen. I mean, I wasn't expecting a hostile environment for Mike Vrabel when he came back with the Patriots. It had been a couple of years. I understand the circumstances around his firing. It wasn't a hugely popular decision. I think people understood the decision, but I don't think Mike Vrabel had done anything for him to warrant a hostile reception when he returned to Nissan Stadium earlier this year. One texter says, and I agree, a good one this year will be when Brady Tkachuk goes back to Ottawa with the Florida Panthers.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I want to say that happens relatively early in the season. I want to say it does happen in October, but I don't have the schedule in front of me. But yes, Brady Tkachuk going back to Ottawa with the Florida Panthers.
Mitch Marner going back to Toronto for the first time.
Well, that happened this past season.
Yeah, that's an example.
Yeah, but I don't think it was very hostile, though.
Was it not?
I think he got a warm reception from Maple Leafs fans.
Look at the Canadians. They're so nice.
Yeah, generally. I mean, I'm sure there were some boos, but they played a tribute video to him, and I think he got a warm reception. Dylan in Antioch says, ask Willie about Mark Howard's Jimmy VZ obsession, LOL. Well, unfortunately, Willie isn't here to answer that question. Josh on our text line says, damn, Adam completely ignored Connor's mom. So rude.
You did.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Nute.
You did.
I'm taking good care of your son for the next 30 minutes. I apologize. Don't be mad at me. I'm trying to think of other ones that come to mind. Terry McCormick, who was in studio in the last hour, texted me and said, Derek Mason getting booed after spiking the ball and celebrating a Ravens comeback win at Nissan Stadium. McNair and Samari Roll also playing for the Ravens in that game. I know Derek Mason.
Showman.
I know Derek Mason. He likes it.
Would he stoop to that level?
What?
Of taunting the opposing fan base?
Yes. He'll tell you he wouldn't.
I mean, I've seen the video countless times of him with Bill Belichick, but he never won with him and the fans.
He is an ultra competitor, even now.
You're forgiven by my mother.
Oh, thank you, Mrs. Nute. Keith says Alexander Radulov coming back with Dallas. That's a good one as well. I wish I had been there for the first return. I don't think I was here yet when that happened. Keep them coming. 615-737-1025. Your favorite hostile homecomings in sports. As we await your replies, The Athletic earlier today published its college football quarterback tiers for 2026, ranking every projected starter from 1 to 138. The number one quarterback on the list, Trinidad Chambliss of Ole Miss.
Wow.
The number one quarterback in 2026, projected starting quarterback, according to The Athletic, followed by Dante Moore at Oregon, C.J. Carr at Notre Dame, Darian Mensah at Miami, and Julian Sayin at Ohio State. Arch Manning outside the top five. Arch Manning at number 7. Sam Levitt rounding out, quote unquote, tier 1 at number 8. If you're curious for how the quarterbacks stack up specifically in the SEC, Trinidad Chambliss, number 1, Arch Manning, Sam Levitt, they're in tier 1. Tier 2, Gunnar Stockton of Georgia, Marcel Reed of Texas A&M, and John Mateer of Oklahoma, in that they're in tier 2. Tier 3, Lenora Sellers, Byram Brown of Auburn, and Austin Simmons of Missouri. Tier 4, Kamario Taylor of Mississippi State, Keelan Russell of Alabama, Kenny Minchie of Kentucky, Aaron Philo or Philo?
Philo.
Aaron Philo at Florida, and Jared Curtis at Vanderbilt. Curtis, number 57 overall, but tier 4 in the SEC. KJ Jackson of Arkansas. Faison Brandon at the bottom of the list. Sorry, Balls fans.
Wow.
The lowest starting quarterback in the SEC, but number 75 overall. Any arguments over those rankings, Connor Nute?
If we're going strictly off SEC,
If you want to look at the SEC, we'll look at the SEC.
Austin Simmons is interesting to me just because he got hurt last year with Ole Miss. That started the whole Trinidad Chambliss saga.
He's number 26 overall, but in tier 3 in the SEC, along with Lenora Sellers and Byram Brown.
I'd bump him down.
Okay.
I would bump him down just because he doesn't have the volume of SEC play. And I have realized we're comparing him with Byram Brown, who also hasn't played in the SEC. He's a transfer from South Florida. But he hasn't put together quality starts, in my opinion. And I don't know. There's a reason he wasn't brought back for Trinidad Chambliss. Now, maybe that's a testament to how good Trinidad Chambliss really is, who I've been banking on. He's my Heisman pick for this season. But I would knock him down. I don't know. Jared Curtis, I would probably knock down too if you're going to put Faison Brandon in that last level, just because I put them in kind of the same category.
Curtis, number 57 overall. Brandon, number 75 overall.
That's too steep a gap for me. Just because I think they're both true freshman quarterbacks. Neither one have any college football experience whatsoever. So I think it's hard to compare the two when we haven't seen them even take the field in college football, not just the SEC, in college football in general.
Here's the write-up on Curtis. Flipping Curtis, a top 5 recruit committed to Georgia, was a coup for the Commodores. He's the highest-rated signee in program history. Is he worth the hype? Probably so, yeah, an SEC GM said. He's still battling for the job with Blaise Berlowitz, who backed up Diego Pavia the last 2 years, but Curtis is clearly Vanderbilt's quarterback of the future. He's big with the arm to make any throw at all levels and can be a problem when extending plays given his strength and mobility. We couldn't afford him, but we liked him, an SEC assistant said. I think he's really good. We'll see what his mental makeup is. I think he's going to get beat up early, and if he can weather, then I think he'll be fine.
I think that's fair. I think that's a fair analysis, but I don't understand why you can apply that logic to Curtis, but not to Brandon. Brandon's a 5-star quarterback as well.
All right, here's what the Athletic says about Brandon. Tennessee hasn't yet declared a starter between Brandon and redshirt freshman George McIntyre, but Brandon, a top 10 national recruit, has the profile and ability to compete right away. He's tall and lean with a big arm and good mobility. He has no fear taking downfield shots when the opportunity arises, which fits the Vols offense well. There will be some growing pains, as with most true freshmen, but not much question about Brandon's physical talent. Quote, Brandon has the size and ability, and SEC GM said, just have to see him process.
Those are very similar write-ups to me for quarterbacks on two different tiers.
That is true.
So I don't know. I would put them on the same tier, whether that's the same tier Curtis is on, or in my opinion, that lowest tier, not because I'm knocking on their talent and what they can do. I just haven't seen it. I don't know what they're capable of in college football because they haven't played it yet.
All right, the top 10 overall. Again, this is the Athletics ranking of every projected starter in college football this season. Here's the top 10, regardless of conference. Trinidad Chambliss, you'll have to help me with some of these names. Trinidad Chambliss of Ole Miss, number 1. Dante Moore of Oregon, number 2. CJ Carr of Notre Dame, number 3.
Okay.
Darian Mensah of Miami, number 4. Julian Sayin of Ohio State, 5. Drew Mestemaker?
Yes.
Of Oklahoma State, number 6.
Yeah.
Arch Manning, number 7. Sam Levitt, number 8. Jaden Maivia. That's Maivia?
No. What is it? It's
not Rocky Maivia.
Yeah, it's Maivia.
Maiava?
I think it's Maivia.
I think it's Maivia, not Maivia.
Maybe I'm just confusing.
You're watching too much wrestling.
Yeah.
Jaden Maivia of USC, and then Noah Fafita
of Arizona. Yep.
That's your top 10. Gunnar Stockton, Josh Hoover, Marcel Reed, JKS, and Kevin Jennings round out the next 5.
I would put Gunnar Stockton in that top 10. I would replace him with Noah Fafita. I would switch those two. Trinidad, I would put at number 1 for sure. Dante Moore at 2. Those two are comparable to me because I think you could argue that Dante Moore would have gone number 2 overall in this past year's NFL draft. Let's see. I like Sam Levitt. I like the fit with LSU. I think he's fine there. CJ Carr proved a lot last year starting as a freshman for Notre Dame. I like him. Jaden, now you have to help me. Mayava? Mayava.
Thank you, Brandon.
He's good. I think he's a bit overrated just because he has the USC across his chest, and USC is a traditional program, and they're trying to return to relevancy. Josh Hoover, I think I would put higher too. Playing with Indiana, I like the fit with Kurt Signetti. Good arm there. He just needs to hone in on the accuracy and the interceptions, but I think if anyone can drill that out of him, it's Sig. So I would put him right outside the top 10, but I think he's very, very close to being in that caliber.
For kicks and giggles, locally, Roman Gagliano of MTSU, number 116 out of 138 on the list. And by the way, number 138, Trey Hedden of New Mexico State.
I wonder what the New Mexico State fans are thinking about that.
I'm wondering if Trey Hedden has this list printed up in his locker right now.
I would.
The worst projected starter in college football, according to The Athletic.
I would use that as motivation. Maybe you'll throw 12 picks instead of 14 this year.
Oh, well, we'll see. 615-737-1025. Quickly, we do have one more of our favorite hostile homecomings in sports. One texter says, if Dylan Larkin is traded and he goes back to Detroit, that's another one to look at. Red Wings fans hate him already.
Yeah.
That would be good. I am curious about what happens to Dylan Larkin now that Steve Yzerman is no longer in charge of the Detroit Red Wings.
If he isn't traded, will they still boo him? Like, if he's still in the Detroit starting lineup, will they still show some disdain for him?
It's a good question. It's a good question. I'm trying to think of examples because he's not like holding out or anything. Like if he's under contract. So if the Red Wings don't trade him, he's going to show up to training camp, I have to imagine. And I'm sure there are Red Wings fans that hate Larkin already, but I'm not sure. I don't think his own fans are going to jeer him if he's still in the lineup for the Red Wings when the season starts. 615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your favorite hostile homecomings in sports, but we'll wrap up the show by playing the game that's sweeping the station, one day the nation. That is, Where Are They Now? That's coming up next. Connor Nute, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D-Mace, Vingan and Donick 1025. The game, Connor Nute, Adam Vingan, wrapping up the show with you. Here's what's funny about SEC Media Days. I'm watching the Paul Feinbaum show. Feinbaum's on his set in a suit and tie, and he's having a reporter on. I did not catch his name. He's wearing a baseball cap and a wrinkled collar shirt. Like, this is how reporters actually dress. I do remember, I think it was last year at the SEC spring meetings. Feinbaum had Rexroad on, and at the spring meetings, Feinbaum has his setup like near the beach. So it's Rexroad and Feinbaum at the desk.
Yes, I remember
the
this.
crashing waves behind him.
It was beautiful. It looked like a cologne commercial.
Robbie was making fun of Joe's polo shirt that day. Rexroad, not necessarily a fashionista. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn to say that about my dear friend Joe Rexroad. But unfortunately, there was not a sequel to that because Rexroad did not go to SEC spring meetings earlier this year. Mike, on our text line, we were talking about the college football quarterback rankings on The Athletic. Mike wants to know, where's old Nico ranked?
Yeah.
Nico Iamaleava is number 25.
Too high. Way too
Number
high.
25. Here's the write-up because Mike wants to know the write-up. You could argue that Iamaleava was more impressive during the Bruins 3-9 season than he was at the start as the starter during Tennessee's CFP season in 2024. He took fair criticism for how his time with the Vols ended, but showed a ton of competitive character last year, despite a horrendous team season that featured a messy coaching situation, underwhelming skill support, and a bad offensive line. Iamaleava showed up and battled every week with no complaints, even though his team was undermanned almost every game, and he essentially willed UCLA to one of the biggest upsets of the season against Penn State. Quote, "This guy is so freaking good," a Big Ten assistant coach said. "Single-handedly beat Penn State. Dangerous in every sense of the word, can make every throw. There are reasons to be optimistic about Iamaleava this year, now that UCLA should have competent coaching with Bob Chesney." Iamaleava, number 25.
Too high.
On the list.
Way too high.
Can I pitch in with the stat comparison? Because I actually have them between Tennessee and UCLA.
Yes, please.
Okay, so keep in mind as well, the two different teams, obviously, UCLA and Tennessee, and how bad each one was. His stats are actually either similar or worse, despite making nearly the same amount of passing attempts. He threw 323 times this past season, 334 times with Tennessee, nearly 700 less yards, nearly 2 less average yards per throw, 6 less touchdowns, 2 more interceptions, was sacked just 1 less time at UCLA than he was at Tennessee, and his longest pass all last season was 45 yards.
Okay. Well, according to The Athletic, you could argue that Iamaleava was more impressive this past season with UCLA.
Sure. Still too high.
I wonder how much he got paid to write that.
Where would you put him?
Like the 40s.
A plummet for Nico Iamaleava.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to go and think of what is he at 25?
He's at 25.
I'm not going to think of 25 quarterbacks that are better than him.
He is sandwiched between Rocco Becht of Penn State and Austin Simmons of Missouri.
I mean, I think Nico's better than Simmons, but I don't know. 25 is too high for him, in my opinion. That's just me.
Okay.
And I'm sure Vol Nation agrees with me.
I nailed the pronunciation of Iamaleava last year with all of the what I called Iamale drama. So now I can say Iamaleava like a friggin' champ. All right. We're going to wrap up the show just as we did yesterday. Connor Nute is on the program helping me this week with Willie and Derek on vacation. It's time to play the game that's sweeping the station, one day the nation. It is time for Where Are They Now? So if you haven't played Where Are They Now, here are the rules. Take an athlete from one of the 4 major professional sports.
You can go outside if you want.
Okay, but typically we keep it within the NFL, NBA, MLB, and NHL.
Yeah, whatever you want to do.
You list that player's career path. The player can be active or retired, and we try to guess who that player is. So I've got one right in front of me. So Here's an example. We'll start with the NFL. Here is this player's career path. New Orleans, New England, Los Angeles Rams, Houston, Dallas, back to New Orleans, Buffalo.
Brandon Cooks.
Bingo.
Yeah, that's good job. He beat me by 1 second. but
Brandon nailed it. All right, Connor, you got one?
I do.
All right, let's do it.
Let's go to the hardwood here, folks. Player began with the Utah Jazz, then to the Memphis Grizzlies, Milwaukee Bucks, Phoenix Suns, Charlotte Hornets.
Okay, give me the teams again.
Utah Jazz,
Okay.
Memphis Grizzlies,
All right.
Milwaukee Bucks,
Mhm.
Phoenix Suns,
Okay.
Charlotte Hornets.
Something tells me he was a part of the Mike Conley trade because he went from Utah to Memphis.
Perhaps he was.
It's not my boy Grayson Allen, is it?
It is your boy Grayson Allen,
Oh.
a.k.a., according to Pro Basketball Reference, G-Money and Debo. I don't know where Debo comes from, but it is Grayson Allen.
I mean, if you've ever seen the movie Friday, Grayson Allen looks nothing like Tiny Lister, a.k.a. Debo. But the nicknames on Basketball Reference, Hockey Reference, I don't know where they come up with them because I don't think half of them are real. All right, Brandon, you got one?
I do have one. We're going to go to the NFL for this one.
All right.
All right. This player started out his career with the Houston Texans, then the Indianapolis Colts, then the Tennessee Titans, the Atlanta Falcons, Tennessee Titans again, the Carolina Panthers, the Chicago Bears, and most recently played with the Cleveland Browns in 2024.
So how many separate stints for the...
With the Titans, he spent 2 stints here.
Okay, so it's not Danico Autry,
No.
who's apparently retiring.
Let me think here.
Would you like his college?
Yes.
Texas.
Tejas.
Texas.
He was drafted in the 3rd round in 2017.
Oh, so pretty recently, huh?
I have no idea.
I'm sort of blanking on this one,
Want
too.
one more hint?
Yeah.
Yes.
There's relation to the Derrick Henry conversation from earlier.
Oh, is it Dontrell Hilliard?
No, but you
Nah.
are close.
Oh,
Is
who's
it
the
Dante
other running
Foreman?
back?
Dante Foreman.
Deontay Foreman?
Yes.
Okay. I need a moment to find one. So, Connor, if you have one.
Okay. Let's go to the ice.
All right, let's do it.
Montreal Canadiens,
Okay.
Nashville Predators,
Okay.
Florida Panthers, Washington Capitals, and Pittsburgh Penguins.
Okay. Say Montreal,
Montreal,
Nashville.
Nashville,
Yep.
Florida,
Okay.
Washington,
Uh-huh.
Pittsburgh.
Okay. Montreal, Nashville, Florida, Washington, Pittsburgh. Okay. I don't think it's Frankie Bouillon.
No, I'm not deep enough to pull that one.
Nashville, Florida. It's not Nick Cousins. It's not Jonathan Marchessault. Florida, Washington, Pittsburgh. All right, I need a hint.
Some say I'm not going to give you position,
Okay.
but some say he is the guy before the guy in Nashville Predators history.
It's not David Legwand.
Repeat the first team one more time.
Montreal Canadiens.
It's not Subban. It's not
It's someone we are very close with here at the station.
it's not Chris Mason.
And
It's not Hal Gill. He didn't play for Washington.
no, it's not Hal.
Oh.
Hal played for Boston.
Yes. It's not Chris Mason. Someone we're very close to on the station.
Physically close to. Some say he might be in the room with us right now.
Hold on. Let me scour the bobbleheads. It's not Hartnell.
Thomas Vokoun.
It is Thomas Vokoun.
Oh.
And I was at a disadvantage. I don't have the bobbleheads in here with me, but when you
Yes.
said the guy before the guy I was like, that has to be before Pekka.
Yep.
So I was like, Thomas Vokoun.
I was thinking Forsberg when you said the guy before the guy. Okay. All right. Brandon, you got one? I was so consumed with that I forgot to look one up.
I do have one. We're going to actually go to the hardwood here for this one.
Okay.
Try me, pal.
Okay, I will
Okay,
try you.
do it.
I think you'll probably get this one, but we'll see. All right. This player played with the Sacramento Kings,
Okay.
the Chicago Bulls, the New Orleans Pelicans, the New York Knicks, the Shanghai Sharks, the Phoenix Suns. And that was last in 2019 when he was most recently in the NBA.
Who the hell? Okay. Kings, Bulls, Pelicans, Knicks. And then who was the last one?
The Phoenix Suns in 2019.
Suns.
All right. One more time.
All right. Kings,
Yes.
Bulls, Pelicans, Knicks, Suns.
Okay. It's not. Okay. I'll tell you my first guess. I don't think it's Jonas Valanciunas.
No, it's not
No.
Jonas.
He played in
Okay.
Toronto.
Is it? Okay. I've got a guess here. Is it Trevor Ariza?
It is not Trevor Ariza. I will
Oh.
not give you the school because that will make it too obvious, but I will tell you his draft year,
Okay.
2011.
Okay.
2011. Okay. Is the school of the fan base of one of the two people sitting in this room?
No,
Okay.
Is it Darren Collison?
it is not. I will tell you
Oh.
that the school he went to is a blue school, though. But it
Okay.
is not.
So probably
Duke or
Kansas.
It's not Duke or Kansas. Oh, man.
It's probably Kansas then. Who played?
It's not Rondo.
No, Rondo played at Kentucky.
It is a guard.
Okay.
Not Chalmers.
This is gonna kill you guys. When you
Oh, I
find out
know.
who it is.
Oh, man.
I'm gonna feel horrible.
Is it Tyreek Evans?
No.
No,
Oh,
he
I-
played in Memphis
I give up.
and Indiana.
I give
Jimmer
up.
Fredette.
Oh,
BYU legend.
a different
Jimmer
shade of
Fredette.
blue. A different shade of blue. All right. Let's go back to the ice. Nashville Predators, Minnesota Wild, Winnipeg Jets, New York Rangers. Nashville Predators,
Okay.
Minnesota Wild,
Wow.
Winnipeg Jets, New York Rangers.
Okay.
I will give you a hint. He is a defenseman.
Okay. Let's see.
He played 114 games over 5 seasons for the Nashville Predators
Oh my God.
between 2014 and 2019.
Wow. So he was here during the prime years.
Yes.
Okay.
He was a depth player, a depth defenseman.
Okay. So it's not the illustrious career of Philip DiGiuseppe here in
No,
Nashville.
he's a forward, but
Yeah.
no, it's not Di Giuseppe. But in terms of the sound of his last name, it's similar to Di Giuseppe. It's Italian.
Rocco Grimaldi. Or he was a forward.
Good guess. He's a forward, but his name is also Italian. Fan favorite.
Okay.
This is gonna kill me
You
when I
know.
hear who it is.
All right. Let me know if you guys have a guess or I'll just reveal the answer.
I think we can work through this.
All right. I'll let you guys work
You
through
said
it.
he's a
before-
defenseman.
He's a
Defenseman.
defenseman. He played 114 career games with the Predators over 5 seasons between 2014-15 and 2018-19. His career high in games, 36 with the Predators in 2018-19. He played 51 games for the Jets in 2019-20.
Oh, this is a Milwaukee Admirals legend then.
He spent some time there, yes. Fun fact, his then girlfriend helped me at Nordstrom at Green Hills once because she worked there while I
that's
was
nice
looking
of
for
her.
something to wear.
Nice. That's really nice.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm getting this one.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm conceding.
The answer, Anthony Botetto.
Oh,
I wouldn't have gotten
man,
that.
I wouldn't have gotten that either. I forgot about him.
Caleb on our text line. You got it, my friend. It's Anthony Botetto. And that wraps up today's edition of Where Are They Now? A big thank you to Joey Dwyer of Vandy on SI for joining us in the first hour. Terry McCormick of MainStreet Media sitting in with us for the entire 4 o'clock hour to preview Titans training camp on tomorrow's program. Trevor Maddich will join us in the 3 o'clock hour. We'll talk college football and more with Trevor Maddich. Nick Suss of the Tennessean will join us during the 4 o'clock hour as we continue previewing Titans training camp first practice a week from tomorrow. So Suss will be in studio with us to help us break down the Tennessee Titans. But in the meantime, have a wonderful rest of your evening. Keep your head up. You know, we've turned into Florida, really, with all of these random pop-up downpours. I think there are supposed to be some more tonight. So if you're out and about, just keep your head up because it might pour on you.
As Andy Grammer said, got to keep your head up.
Got to keep your head up. Whoa. Yes. Look at that. Look at that synchronized whoa-ohing there. But have a wonderful rest of your evening. On behalf of Derek Mason, be loved, love on your people. And Connor, tomorrow at 3, we'll be talking, and
You'll be listening.
peace.